next topic of discussion is the relationship between language and culture. It has been said that language is a reflection of culture. But what is culture? Because before we answer that question, we have to ask ourselves, what is culture? Culture is not one thing. Culture is almost everything. We talk, for example, of the political culture, we talk of economic culture, we talk of educational culture, scientific culture, culture of laziness, and so on and so forth. So there's hardly any aspect of human life that can be categorized within the larger text of culture. We use language to express all these elements that we've just spoken about. Because if we were dumb, we didn't have language, then we would not even know ourselves. But it is through language that we come to know and understand what culture is and the relationship between these two aspects. Language, again, is something that we have to ask ourselves whether it is a thing, it is a phenomenon, or what it is. We can only understand language if we know that language is enabled through sounds. So if we look at human capacity to speak, we have to look at the human capacity to articulate sounds. And in fact, sounds are described according to what is called place of articulation and manner of articulation. The place where sounds are produced and the way that they are produced. And if you look at the nature of sounds, you don't have to go further than your own mouth. And if you look at the structure of the mouth and all those possibilities of sound production, you will know that, in fact, language uses what the Saussure called a minute number of sounds that have endless possibilities. So if you look at the mouth of somebody from the Kalahari, it is no different from the mouth of somebody from Paris. So how come, that we consider one language as superior to the other one? This is really a myth. There's no superior language and there's no inferior language. But all languages make use of this finite number of sounds for infinite possibilities. So one language, for example, out of a hypothetical 50 sounds that human beings can produce, different languages will take different numbers of sounds from the same repertoire that is produced in the mouth. As you said, sounds are named for the places where they are produced and the manner that they are produced. So there are sounds that are produced through the use of lips, and these are called labial, because labia are the lips. They're called labial sounds. Sounds that are produced at the roof of the mouth, the palate. These are called palatal sounds. Sounds that are produced through the nose are called the nasal sounds. Sounds that are produced with the help of the teeth, these are dental sounds. So different languages will take a finite number of these possibilities and then combine them in their own unique ways. And that is why when they combine them into a pattern, then we say that this is the phonological system of this language, and it will sound slightly different from another language, simply merely because of how these sounds are patterned. And this is the field of phonology, or the study of sounds. And if a language, one language takes 15, another one might take 20 of the sounds. Another one might take 7, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't matter the number of sounds that are used by a particular linguistic group. It is the manner and way of patterning of those sounds that make them distinct from each other. The closest analogy is music. In music, we have a limited number of musical notes. In fact, there are no more than 7 musical notes. So some languages will take 3, will make use of 3 musical notes, others 4, others 5, and so on and so forth. But it is the way that they are patterned that will distinguish one musical culture from another. That is why when we hear a piece of music, then we say, this sounds like Asian music. This sounds like African music. This sounds like European music. And in fact, just like in phonology, in musicology, they just use 7 musical notes. And each musical culture just takes a few of those and patterns them in their own peculiar ways. Both musical cultures and languages are just like human beings. They like to look distinctive. And this distinctiveness can be contrived, by dressing in a certain manner, by preferring certain kinds of colors. So we say, oh, this looks like Indian colors. This fellow dresses like an Indian, or that fellow dresses like so and so, on the basis of just the colors, that people choose. So some can choose to be excessive, like the Hare Krishna, They've adopted yellow as their own very distinctive cultural item. And of course that is part of religious culture. But in others, the colors would be different. Like, for example, if you look at Orthodox Christians in Ethiopia, their favorite color is white. And you see them in their showers, they're always white, although they put certain patterns. Other cultures adopt, black color, like the black color that we find in veils. This has its antecedents in this mourning, grieving for Saddam Hussein. So it's a very Shia thing. So Shias have have influenced the buibouis, that we put on here. But that is not the case in other places. Like if you go to Morocco, nobody dresses in black. In Germany, again, this is the relationship between language and culture. In Germany, don't send your friend a gift of a black suit, because the black suit is only worn by Germans when attending funerals. so if you saw, a very nice Pierre Cardin black suit, you'd say, oh, this should be really nice, for my friend Greenhat, Grunhat. But if you do that, no matter, what the quality of the paper, the cloth, but if you send it to him, that is what the French would call faux pas, a terrible mistake. Because you are culturally not literate. Because if you are, you would be aware of these nuances. The educated British, for example, like what are called sober colors. They don't like what Americans call loud colors. Like red, yellow colors that strike you, from very far. Cultural literacy is reflected in the language itself, in the vocabulary, that is used in these places. One of the champions of local cultures and local ways of doing things is Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And Ngugi was very much affected by the Mau Mau rebellion in the 1940s and 50s. And he was affected because first, he himself, coming from a Kikuyu background, experienced the colonial oppression of the Kikuyu, because after the First, Second World War, there was an attempt to award or to reward those who fought in these wars. And they thought the best thing to do was to offer them land. And Kenya was considered an ideal place, especially the Kenyan highlands, because they said the Kenyan highlands were areas that are suitable for European settlement. These areas were mild. They were not very cold, and they were not very, very hot. So one of the strategies was to remove the Kikuyu from their settlements and offer these lands to these European ex-soldiers who had fought in the First or Second World War. And again, what do you do, with people that we have displaced? And that is why they put them in what they call native reserves. In fact, that is why in Kiswahili, up to today, we talk of going to reserve. Nenda reserve, which actually means, you are going back to your native or tribal lands. But these were areas that were separated just to put the Kikuyu principally, in these areas and take their land. And Kenyatta is is reported to have said, one of their strategies was to convert us to Christianity. They converted us into Christianity, and then they told us to close our eyes and pray. So when we closed our eyes and prayed, when we opened our eyes, they had the land and we had the Bible. So that is why people like Ngugi opposed. His family was directly affected by that. They were some of the displaced people. And when Kenyatta came back with Koinange, they defended these Kikuyu practices, cultural practices, like circumcision and these other things. And when the missionaries opened their schools, they said, you can't do these barbaric practices, in our schools. We will never allow you to do this. So Kenyatta and Koinange set up special schools, which they called the Karinga schools, and they became very, very famous. They said, in these schools, we can teach whatever we want and practice whatever cultural practices we want. And that is precisely what they did. And the missionaries, of course, went and set up the Alliance High School. And then in Nyanza, they set up Maseno. And it is for this reason that one of the proponents of British civilizing missions became the headmaster of Alliance, and before that he had been at Maseno. And this is Carey Francis was the principal of Maseno first in Nyanza, where he taught Oginga Odinga, and then came and taught at Alliance. Yeah. But Mugi never liked him. He said, he was a pillar of British colonialism. And in one of his autobiographical works, Ngugi talked about in the house of the interpreter. And that refers, to the experiences that he had at Alliance High School and how it was anti-African and pro-colonial. So while there, they tried to exclude Kikuyus from accessing any of those institutions. They tried their best to exclude them from going, for example, to Makerere. Because if they went to Makerere and came back, they would be better educated, and then they would be in strategic positions, and then they would be able to challenge those cultural values that they were trying to impart on these people. So if we look at Ngugi, you cannot understand his position until you understand Kenyatta's position. And you can't understand Kenyatta's position without understanding Mugo Agatheru's position, which he reflected in his book, Child of Two Worlds. Because one leg was in traditional culture, and then the other one was in the contemporary. In fact, even the name Mugo is a medicine man. So the medicine men were the leaders of those communities. But they no longer accepted, wanted them to continue with that life. And then they said, this is now anachronistic, its time has passed. And this is a new period, and we have to approach the world from a different perspective. So that's basically the way that society transformed in Kenya, and it's very much part of our history here. For example, it was not only the Kikuyu who were not allowed, to go to alliance, or they tried to discourage them as much as possible. But even Muslims, they only allowed 2 Muslims in any 1 year, to go Makerere from Kenya. Those from Zanzibar, that was a different story. So that is why many, for example, of the older Muslim intellectuals in Kenya studied in Britain. They went to University of London instead of Makerere. So some, like Professor Mohamed Hassan Abdulaziz was telling me that he was teaching in high school, and then, of course, I think they saw that some of these people are so bright. They took them for diploma courses, in Britain, in London. But when they were in London, they finished, this 1-year course. They were told, now it is time to go back. So they said no. They said, no, we don't want to go back. We don't want to go back. We want to continue from where we have left. We don't want only to stop with a diploma. We want to do a full degree. And then they expected these British to pay for the education there. And then the British said, no, we're not going to. You are just brought here for diploma, and that's it. We're finished. You must go back. They didn't want them to continue, So Professor Abdulaziz said, I'm not going back. I've applied and I've been admitted to University of London. So if you don't want to give me this scholarship, I'll go to Russia. and that was the biggest scare, because Russia was communist at that time. So they said, no, don't go to Russia. So he remained at the University of London and studied Arabic. And then later did a postgraduate diploma in linguistics, and then did his PhD in linguistics. And then he veered and trained and looked at pre-20th century Swahili poetry.